Hi, good morning, everyone in UK, and good evening to everyone in the parts of the South Asia. Today, we're continuing the ongoing interviews with some of the LabVIEW personalities, LabVIEW experts, and LabVIEW champions from all over the world. Uh, you must have seen like a lot of videos presently. We have been providing you the insight of these LabVIEW experts, their journey with the LabVIEWs, and how they have helped to shape the LabVIEW community, as well as how users are using the LabVIEW. You must have seen like many presentations in the past, lots of videos, lots of interviews, and we have discussed a lot and everything. We have got a very special, uh, LabVIEW champion today, all the way from England. Before that, my name is Gurung, and I'm also the LabVIEW champion and certified LabVIEW architect, and I'll be the host for you today. Today, we're embarking into something a little bit different. As you guys must have seen, there has been certain changes, and there has been, the community presentations has been limited in certain LabVIEW user groups and everything. With that context, there has been like a many LabVIEW professionals, LabVIEW consultants, and many other LabVIEW experts has came together to empower the LabVIEW community and keep that connection going on. So today I would like to present to you not only the LabVIEW champion, certified LabVIEW architect, certified LabVIEW embedded developer, and not only the certified professional instructor, but also the director of GDev. And we'll be learning more about that one. What does it mean by that? Steve actually put a little bit word on that before. So with further ado, I want to shorten this introduction and let me introduce the man himself, and he's going to introduce himself. So let's welcome James McNally all the way from England. Hi, James. Thank you very much for taking your time out and then speaking with us about the LabVIEW and LabVIEW community and whatever you are doing in the LabVIEW community. Please introduce yourself and then please yeah, you can continue. Thank you.
Hi, well, thanks for that great introduction. Yeah, as you say, I'm James McNally. I run a one-man consulting firm as it stands at the minute, Wiresmith Technology. So that's what I do day to day now. I'm a LabVIEW consultant focusing on research and development companies. Exactly as you say, I like to get involved in the community, so I'm also involved with GDev. There's a team of about, and I should have checked the numbers, 8 or 10 of us now that help run that. That run that together. Yeah, and exactly as you say, I'd like to get involved in the CLA summits, get involved in the events, ready to fly out to NI week next year, next week, sorry, meet everybody there. So yeah.
Yeah, really awesome, James. That was a very short and sweet introduction. So can you please tell us about how you got into LabVIEW and everything? As I found your profile, you were previously an NI employee as well. So please tell us how you got into the LabVIEW, how you got fascinated, because some of the people, they might want to climb up the ladder in the NI ecosystem as well, but at the same time you came out offshoot from there, and then you started your own consultancy firm. And not only that, you haven't limited yourself there. You have already got I think all the possible certification from NI that you can get from for a LabVIEW as well. So please a little bit tell us your journey, how it all started and how you got into all this adventure.
Yeah, well, I think like with many people, it started at university. So I was studying systems engineering, which is kind of a bit of a jack of all trades engineering course. We did a bit of software, a bit of electronics, a bit of mechanical engineering, and we did some C and I think C++ in the first year, and it didn't interest me at all. I will always remember we had one challenge, which was to make a model of trains going in and out of a siding, and it's just you type in a number and another line of text comes across and says there's now 2 trains, and I was, I just never connected with it. But then in the second year, we had a LabVIEW project, and the project was it was a car simulator, but basically they had a little board connected to a DAC card. So while the car was driving around on the screen, you were making the LEDs blink and the brakes blink, and I can't remember what else. And that was kind of a, oh, computers can like do stuff in the real world as well moment for me. This is what I want to do. Like, you know, the lines flashing across the screen have no interest to me, but actually impacting the real world somehow is what really got me intrigued. And I remember going and speaking to the professor who was teaching it. So what does this software get used for? You know, where can I go get some more, really? So in the end, I signed up as an intern at NI as part of a year in industry as part of my course. And yeah, and then it just went from there. So then I went back as a graduate as well, working in the technical support department. Became what's called an A specialist, which was still in the realms of technical support, but rather than being on the phones all day, I had some bigger projects, I guess you'd say, or bigger problems to solve, and go and visit customers more and more, which was fantastic. And I loved getting exposure, and still love getting exposure to different industries. You know, not just one, but I can work with big physics experiments one day and wind turbines the next, or something like that. So I was there about 4 years as a graduate, and I just got to the point where I kind of realized there were different ways to go, and it was great at NI. You got to help a lot of customers a little bit, but there were customers I could see who their idea, their invention, their system, whatever it was they're working on, had great potential, but there was only so much assistance we could give as NI, which we can't sit down and write it for them, basically. And they were either not inclined to learn how to program well, or not bothered, or didn't have the time. Actually, to be fair, was more often the case. Alongside everything else they had to do, they really wanted to focus on whatever problem they were solving. So that's why I started Wiresmith Technology. I saw it as an opportunity to then take the next step and go, okay, rather than I can go in and actually spend some serious time helping people with these ideas. So that was what drove that. But I still love all the other stuff as well, so that's why I still do the community stuff. I still teach the occasional course at National Instruments, because I see it all as a kind of continuing spectrum, if you like, of just helping people solve their problems, figure out how to improve the world. So
yeah, that's really interesting, like James and everything. Like you moved out, and then like you saw the problems of the customers. And even like if you do not know, like I was a consultant for like NI for like last 2 years before I set up my own venture and everything. At the time, like I was working very closely with the application engineering team, and then I've seen like all this kind of like codes, like you have mentioned that maybe different kind of reasons, like the code comes out to be like we may not like the spaghetti, but like the code comes that way and everything. I think that is one of the many reasons, like the consultants like you are there to like help these people become like better, like try to finish their project on time, not only finish it but also make it more like future proof, scalable, and modular, and so on.
James, kind of it's kind of stumbling over the line, and then there's exactly like you say, let's get over the line with something that's maybe better than we expected, or ready for the next step, or exactly that.
Yeah, really interesting. So James, like I think like you are a very rare individual. Like I have actually interviewed who have seen the both sides. For example, like you are supporting so many projects. I think maybe like 5 minutes ago, like you were working on one project supporting one type of customer, and finally like you have to flip to like another project and then work on the another one and support. I think that's how like you were able to may be able to develop this competency on all the NI hardwares, as well as problem solving skills and everything. So what's your perspective on like not to mess up your projects and everything. I think like since you have seen the either side, maybe like you're like you are trying to fix like give a like a short solution or kind of like antibiotic to like some other people, and now like you are running your own farm, Wiresmith, and then you are trying to give the organic solution to the people, like how to build it, and then like a custom projects and everything. So what's your perspective on that one?
I think I think the big thing right now is we have to be. There's a lot of kind of rhetoric and speak around. Oh, just get things running. With all the Silicon mentality, Silicon Valley mentality, right? Of just move fast and break things. And that kind of works, I think, if you're working incrementally with something that's already there. But I think what that can do, and I fell foul of this trap when I left NI as well, is if you get too drawn into that side of it and the agile side, you can overlook things like doing proper design and understanding the design elements. And actually, I think that's where a lot of projects can be won or lost in some sense. There's different aspects of it, like you say, because whenever you develop a project, really there's two sides that you've got to consider. And one is actually solving the problem. So if it needs to do this, it has to do that. And the other is, getting the structure right in such a way that if it doesn't solve the problem, it's quick and easy to fix. You try and consider what might have changed in the future, although I think, again, that's something we have to be wary of, because if you spend too much time on that, you can't predict the future. So it's not worth putting too much time in, but at least having some kind of structure where if a customer's already said the next step is this, you can start to factor that in. And for that side, for the structural side, actually stepping back and looking at the big picture of the design and spending some time on that, I think is really important and can get overlooked. Don't get me wrong, I don't do weeks in design and diagrams up front and things like that for each project, but I do stop and think, and I tend to do like throwaway diagrams. So I'll do a quick diagram. I won't aim to keep it up to date because I know I probably won't anyway. But I will, I'll draw it out on the whiteboard and I'll think it through. And if I'm working with someone, I'll talk it through. And so many projects I think get won or lost at that point. In terms of if you start off with a bad design, you can maybe push through and get that problem solved, but it's going to be like walking through treacle. It's going to be so much harder to do than actually let's spend some time up front. Let's talk with people. Let's understand the problem, and let's figure out what the design looks like.
Wow, really, really insightful description you have given, James. So James, what are the different challenges I think you must have found working as a solo? Because sometimes maybe since you are working in the R&D, mostly R&D applications you are talking about. So what are the different challenges you might face? For example, let's say you're working alone, you can make your call, what type of architecture you want to build. I think you might be sometimes engaged with a certain organization which already have a certain LabVIEW teams and everything. So what do you think, what kind of guidelines or a procedure, what do you think would work best in your perspective, so that the project can be completed in time and efficiently?
I mean, it's both a blessing and a curse. I mean, certain things become a lot simpler working on your own. In terms, especially in terms of things like code management and stuff like that. It's just so much easier. The biggest challenge working alone, and maybe this doesn't quite tie directly into project, but just as a personal thing though, is pushing yourself forward. I think it was with Chris Roebuck you were talking about. When you sat working on your own, it's very difficult to kind of see different perspectives or learn something new and push that forward into your code. And that's the riskiest thing. And that's one of the reasons I try and get involved in a lot of the community stuff. And there's now a few of us which we've called ourselves the Alliance of LabVIEW Architects, that we have a Slack room open, and we're not in the background all the time, but we have a Slack room where we can go and bounce ideas off each other. But it's very hard, and you have to be very deliberate with finding the time and making the connections to improve what you're doing, as opposed to, because no one's ever going to, like you say, there's no one to push back on me. There's no one's going, actually, are you sure that's a good way to do it? And sometimes you need that challenging to make you think about what you're doing. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, specific to projects, I guess the big challenge is obviously just there's a lot of risk. It's riskier if I have two different projects. If one overruns, it makes a big impact when there's only one of you. Or if I take a holiday, the project stops. So there are certainly challenges with being alone. As I say, there's a lot of things that it makes easier and streamlines a lot, and things I don't have to care about so strongly. So I'm very interested in continuous integration, but it's not critical for me as a developer right now, because there's only one build machine, which is mine. So, but yeah, it certainly has its challenges.
Yeah, really interesting, James. So like in this conversation, like this is the first time we're hearing this word. I've heard that before. So you discussed about like Alliance of LabVIEW Architects. Can you please like elaborate on that one? Like what is it about? I think some of the people might think about like it's some kind of like a secret society or just a flag or like a marbles, like and all this kind of stuff. So please like explain to us, like maybe like many people may not even know. Like I've seen like some of the videos on YouTube as well. I've seen like ALA, like I've seen in the Twitter as well, I believe, and then it's like very high level like presentations and everything. You guys are putting out there like long extensive videos and everything. I think that is one thing I want to know, what is the ALA. And my second question is going to be, are we actually like do we actually have like enough audience for that one, or like what we can do so that we can push like the quality of the programming level of like many LabVIEW developers to that level?
So for the first question, the Alliance of LabVIEW Architects is essentially, and I'm going to get my numbers wrong again, six people in similar shoes, or were in the same shoes of working alone as consultants. And really, it's been something to try and fill some of that gap of having people you're working with, really, from the point of view of there's commercial aspects, which is we have a group of people we can subcontract work to when we need to, but actually for me the huge benefit has just been the training side and the development side. So having another group of people where I can, we can just put up a problem and say, I think this is a solution, or I have no idea what the solution is, or can you critique this idea that I've got, and then we try and get together and actually meet in person from time to time as well, and do a similar thing but on a longer time frame. So that's the primary driver, but equally we're intrigued in the long run as to exactly that from an education point of view. Can we take our combined experiences and put out something useful? So right now on the website, it'll just repost the blog posts and things we're doing individually. Hopefully in the long run we'll do some more kind of combined efforts as well, and produce something interesting there too. And then your second question, sorry, the mic it broke up a little bit. I missed the detail.
So basically, like what I was saying, that like the presentations that has been posted by the ALA, the Alliance of LabVIEW Architects. Like I think I've been seeing that for nearly like 3 years. If I'm not wrong, or like 3 or 2 years or something. So basically, my question is like the presentations are like a very high level presentations and everything, very advanced level, I believe, like if I'm not wrong, based on like many users. So compared to that one, this presentation mostly, like as you know, like there's like a LabVIEW Architects group in like a NI forum as well, which is exclusive to, of course, only for the certified LabVIEW Architects. But these presentations has been out there, not only the presentations, but also the video and then walkthrough demos and everything. So my question was like, this is out there, the resource is out there, but
Yeah.
is the, the audience are ready for that one? I've also seen these kind of challenges in India, because many people are not even aware that you can use object-oriented programming in LabVIEW. So that is like another kind of thing.
Yeah.
The question is like, one thing is in simple, like, is the audience ready for that one, first thing, and or whether like what challenge, what can we do for the audience, so that like they can actually grab this, and then like they would be able to develop their application better.
So it's a really interesting point, and something I've been thinking about quite a bit, because one of the things that I've noticed personally, as over the last 5 years I've developed, because it's NI doesn't spit you out ready to do this. I'm a much better coder than I was when I left NI.
Yeah.
And there's kind of two sides to putting out the advanced content, and on the one hand, it's are people ready for it? And exactly that. There needs to be a middle ground of content as well that are gonna pull people up. But also there's a flip side to that as well, which is the other thing that you see is people who haven't done that middle ground suddenly leaping into the advanced content. And I know I did that myself. I felt like when I was learning object-oriented programming, I needed to sit down and learn all the design patterns straight away. Whereas actually what my experience taught me is, no, you need to, you can't jump to the end. Basically, you've got to go through the steps in the middle, and you've got to, in the example of object-oriented programming, I did an article which kind of laid out, it's like, start just with understanding encapsulation. Don't even worry about inheritance to start with. Start with understanding that, then understand inheritance, then understand the design, and in that learn about the design. Again, it comes back to understanding the design implications of that, not just how you code it in LabVIEW, but what does that do to the design. And then you can actually look at design patterns and understand what they're trying to do. So when I looked at design patterns at the beginning, I just got a bit lost. I was like, okay, that makes sense, and didn't register anything higher. Whereas when I started looking back, and I still don't know an awful lot of them, I know the ones I find useful, and I've got the book and I want to read more, but I come back and look at them now and I go, okay, so I can see why that pattern fits into a design, why that pattern helps me here, as opposed to at the start you tend to end up going, oh, this pattern sounds like it sort of fits in this bit, I'll put a pattern here and put a pattern here, and you end up with this very convoluted program. So I think those are the two, there's actually two sides to be wary of there. I think with the intermediate content is probably the bigger issue right now, maybe in the LabVIEW community. Certainly in the UK, that's one of my driving forces behind wanting to get involved in GDevCon with that team, because you tend to get a lot of early content from NI, and you get a lot of what's the right phrase? Maybe want to say mechanical content from NI. You want to do inheritance? Here are the steps through which you go to implement inheritance in LabVIEW. And then we have exactly the CLA Summit, for example, the advanced tracks at NI Week that cover some of the architect stuff. And there's this gap in the middle, which needs a little bit of experience. Basically, what it needs is for some of us who are coming in talking about advanced stuff at the CLA level to apply that experience at that level too. And also for some of the people coming up to say what their experience has been. So one of the great presentations at GDevCon this year that I really enjoyed was a guy called Daniel Harriman, who was at STFC at the time. He's moved to another university now, which was almost what I described earlier. It's about the encapsulation. It's not jumping into the top stuff. It's talking about that, and that's a gap that hopefully GDevCon will fill. And I think we need to promote and find other ways to help with that, because exactly that, you've got to bring people up through the steps. You can't jump to the end as much as we'd like it to be true.
Yeah, they're really interesting. So James, like you touched on like a GDevCon as well. So in the previous interview, like I asked the same question to like Steve as well. I forgot to ask like Chris, unfortunately, in the first interview. But like since you are the director as well of like a GDevCon as well, please tell us a little bit of a story behind this, how it came up and everything. What are the like a motivation behind that, and what are the driving force, and not only that, like what we're trying to achieve as a community. And
yeah, so I guess the origin story comes out of kind of on and off discussions that were had for a while. And what happened in the UK was I think what really started the taste for it actually was NI had a LabVIEW evangelist here called Mike Bailey, and he did a great job of putting on some extra LabVIEW events through the year. He moved on to another company, and so a couple of those stopped. And then what we found was we were trying to do some bigger community stuff at NI Days, but obviously it's NI's event, and each year something would change and we'd have to adapt to it. And we basically thought, wouldn't this be easier if we just had our own event that we can define the structure that's most suitable for learning, for delivering this kind of content. And then exactly as you say, that's been a nice move, because NI Days is all changing now as well, and so it's probably going to be one of the only, if not the only, like LabVIEW centric events in the UK this year. It's a format that's hopefully really paid off. So the main goal of it really is it's centered around learning, of course, as a conference. So what we really want to do is bring some of this. We want to keep it very practical. We kind of want people to be able to come, go away with a few things that they can really work on to improve their development. The other thing we found really interesting is actually it's been a great opportunity for teams of developers as well. So from certain companies, 2 or 3 people off the same team will come. And kind of, as you're saying earlier, as a solo, when you've got a team of you can discuss things in more detail, and you can bounce ideas and push it further. So you'll see we talk a lot about teams now as well from that point of view. And those are the main remits. So we want just really strong. We kind of say sort of intermediate level, CLD level presentations. Delivered by the community still, for the community. And so far so good. So we had 130 people turn up last year. Awesome. Obviously heavily from the UK, but also from Europe and the US, and maybe further afield. Actually, I can't remember the exact numbers. So this year we've got a bigger venue, a bit more central, a bit easier to get to. And hopefully we'll have the same, if not more, people. We've just put out the agenda at the minute. Last week we announced the agenda, and we'll go from there. And so last year and this year, it's been structured, I guess, similarly to a CLA summit. Anybody can come. There's no particular, although we say CLD level, presentations. There's no requirement to be a CLD or anything like that. And I lost my train then.
Yeah, that's really interesting. James. So that's like a really awesome thing you are doing. Like I think like you said, like the presentation is not limited only to the certified professionals. Everybody can come in, and I think there had been like a certain limitation in some of the presentations, either like a too high level, and in some cases it's only. Yeah, sorry or not. I'll edit this out. Okay, sorry. So James, like I was talking about, I'll restart again. So I was saying that you guys are like not only putting the conference only for the highly proficient or like a certified professionals. but also for like all level of professionals. I believe like some of the customers or like some of the lab users, they have got like a specific kind of problem they are working on, and then they want to meet a bunch of like a LabVIEW developers and like professionals like you. And previously, I believe like a NI week or like a NI days event locally in UK had been like one of the best ways to like a get together, network with these people, try to understand their challenges and problems, and then you can provide the solutions to them. But now like since like it is not taking place not only in like UK but also in India this year, so I think like this is the best way. And like can you tell us like the viewers possibly like they are from like US or Europe, they might want to attend your like a GDevCon. uh, I believe like this is the second edition of the GDevCon conference. And can you tell us like which city it is taking place in and the dates? And like I'll be posting the link in the description below, so you can like give a little bit of details so that like they don't have to go into the internet and search it. You can like a little bit like tell our audience.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it's going to be held again in the UK this year in Birmingham. So that's yeah, a bit more central for the UK. It's got a big airport nearby, so people can fly in easily. And yeah, it's you know what? You're going to test me on the dates. I can't remember. It's the
Yeah,
end of
you can go
August.
through the
I'd have
internet.
to pull that up. Yeah, yeah. Google it. You'll see the dates. It's the end of August, though. It's the last week of August or the week before that. And yeah, exactly that. So everybody's welcome from all over the world. Absolutely. You know, as I say, we had a good international turnout last year as well. And as you can imagine, you know, in the future we want to think, how can we broaden this and make it available to more people? You know, this is, like you say, just number 2. And so last year, you know, we all do software development. Version 1 is let's just get something that works. This year is starting to refine and test a few ideas. And I hope over the coming years as well, we will be able to identify ways to make it more useful as well. So, you know, we always welcome feedback from anybody about, oh, I've always wanted to see this, you know, at a LabVIEW event. So for example, you know, this year again, it's going to be mostly presentations, but we're intrigued for the future about, well, okay, can we bring in some more workshop type events? You know, can we do something which is a bit more interactive, which can get people talking to different people a bit more? And that's you know, it's all a work in progress, but it's going to be interesting to see what we can do with this outside of the sort of standard format as well.
Yeah, James, like that's a really interesting thing. I think like you know, Steve was also like mentioning the same kind of thing, like you know, the workshop just before the presentations and everything. This is like a really interesting like aspects for the customers and everything. You don't have to go and then try to find out one thing. You can meet like all the experts in one place, and then you can actually, you know, what is it called? The synergize the like the experience of everyone and everything. That's the word I was looking for. Since this is the second edition, like I wish you guys all the best. Maybe hopefully in the future, like I can also attend and be part of that conference. I want to like ask from your experience a little bit. Like I think you have been engaged in the lab user group in UK for a while with Chris and then Steve and other like fellow developers and lab experts down there in UK. So my question is like I believe like if you have seen that in India also we're trying to emulate a similar kind of lab user group. It's called Indian lab user group. India is like a very vast. I think you have seen the map, or like I don't know you have been in India, but we have got like a diverse people from like all over the place, and then we're fortunately like we have been able to conduct 2 presentations. I think you must have seen that Chris was the key presenter like in the second one. I want to like take some input from you, and for some, unfortunately, like this year, NI days is not taking place, and neither the CLD summit or the CLA summit in India. So what you know, input can you give? Because like you have been very active in the community, not only in the CLA summit, in the like user group, ELA, as well as the GDevCon. I think 4 different you know, communities you are working on at the moment. So what advice can you give to our very young community so that we can, like collaborate, and then maybe like look, maybe something similar to like GDevCon or something, so that we can help, bring the LabVIEW community more awareness and so on.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you're already asking the right questions. It sounds like, in terms
Yeah.
of, the challenge is how to make something that's useful to as many people as possible.
Yeah.
So obviously, working with NI, when I was at NI, I got to attend a lot of user groups around the UK. And even now, I try to go to a couple more. I almost always make my local one. There's a couple that are kind of within reach that I like to go to, but it's been too busy lately, unfortunately. But the thing I find fascinating is everyone is a bit different. So, the one we have in Newbury is a relatively advanced group. A lot of people there are quite advanced developers. It tends to be a little bit more freeform, a little bit more. There are some presentations. There's a lot of discussion around it as well. Whereas you go to some of the others in the UK, where there's one where it's aimed a little lower and it's a bit more structured, and will often have like NI content on the beginning or the end of it as well, and others in between. And that's the really fascinating thing to see. That they all end up being a little bit different depending on the kind of group of people that are there. And what you want to, what wants to be achieved. So I don't think there's one answer to what makes a good user group. It's ultimately about getting input from, well, not getting input, but trying to understand the group of people that are there and the kind of structure that's going to work best. Generally, I think these things are always going to work better if there's an element of interactivity, which is obviously hard over the web, but possible with modern technology. Because and it's about the right mix of presentations. So I think you can get very technical presentations, which are maybe this is a bad phrase, but this is the way to do something. I don't think there's ever the way to do something, but it could be, this is a way I found to do something. Let's put it like that. And then you can get the I sort of phrased as like the storyteller presentations, which are
that's interesting.
a bit less about the technical detail, but a bit more about the context, because you need both. There is no right solution for every case. So understanding, actually most interesting normally is understanding what didn't work along the way for people. And I think mixing those two, if you're it's a difficult balance to get right, but that can appeal to a lot of different sets of people. Something I've been thinking about. I was involved in the CLA Summit agenda this year for Europe. Unfortunately, I didn't read about this beforehand, because now I want to look back at it and think, what would we have done a bit differently to kind of mix these styles a bit. But I think that's the main thing, and ultimately, the people attending can tell. Well, you can ask can tell you what they're kind of looking for and what's working and not. I think that's the important thing, is having those feedback loops, so you can go, okay, especially if you've just started, I really enjoyed this about number one, this not so much, and just refine and refactor it as you go, and you'll end up with something really good.
Yeah, really awesome. Like that's like you were saying that like rather than using the template or something like that, and then remodeling the entire user group, it's rather like a more organic way. Let it evolve, and then like take the feedback in, and then so on. That's very interesting. James, like you have been working with the NI, and then like you are now like like a solo consultant as well in UK, and at the same time like you also conduct the NI standard trainings at NI office as well. So what do you think, like what value does it put, like for example, like you could have done like only the consulting work as well, but like you go back and then like reach out to the customers. I believe like one of the thing, like what I have thought is like if we educate customers even to a certain degree or something, that can actually like makes things like a far more easier to like solve and everything. So what's your take on this one? And then like what strategies or like what things the people need to think, because like I spoke with like lots of LabVIEW champions in previous interviews and everything, and most of the consultants what they said was like sometimes a person is a solo developer, so like they don't even know like what to do first thing. And another
Yeah.
thing, like even if I know I'm doing wrong, I don't want to like I say to people that like I do not know it, because like you don't want to tell that like there's a limitation in the code. So like what can be done to like bridge this gap, because like empowering the entire like a customer base or the lab user base is how like we can proceed further into developing more like a better applications and so on.
Yeah, and most importantly, keep us all in a job.
Yeah.
It's it's a challenge everywhere, I think, with these problems. Exactly that. It's and worse so in languages, I think, where it's so easy to get started. So like LabVIEW, but I think Python and JavaScript and languages like that have the same problem, where someone goes, "Oh yeah, I know JavaScript," and there's many different levels of knowing JavaScript. um, it's from my point of view, I kind of see a bit of a spectrum in terms of how I can see people getting into LabVIEW, and I'm sort of at either ends, I guess, because there's the people who just want to do it all in house anyway. And when I talk about people, I'm thinking about companies and potential customers from my perspective. And that's one end of the spectrum. And then the other end of the spectrum is they just want it done for them. And that's actually most of my consulting work is at that end. They have a problem, they like the NI hardware, but they don't have any interest in learning LabVIEW. It's another thing to do for them. And honestly, the teaching side is something I mostly do for my own enjoyment, to be honest.
Wow.
I love, because behind all of this, I think even that side of my business is going to be stronger if the LabVIEW community is stronger. If people are going out and talking about LabVIEW, sure, there's going to be a load more people that want to do it themselves, but there's going to be some people who go, okay, LabVIEW is a good tool, but I don't want to develop it, but I'll find a LabVIEW developer that can. So that's the kind of perspective I take on the teaching and the community stuff. And there is a middle ground, which I know there's a lot of consultants doing. I know John McBee was talking about it with you. Jörg Hampel in Germany has a similar model where actually you go work with the customers and you train them on site. And I think for people who are new to LabVIEW that want the in-house knowledge, I mean that's the creme de la creme of how to learn. I think is there's nothing, you can't substitute experience very often. Courses will get you to a certain level, and at some point you have to add some experience to that. And so if you need a project done in 6 months and you're just starting out, well, you don't have a lot of time to develop that experience. So that's where having consultants in the mix as well will really speed things up. But I think in bridging the gap, how you get people to
become
understand
aware and then understanding.
it is obviously challenging. I think a big part of it is we need to kind of appreciate we need to understand, first of all, that LabVIEW is software, which sounds strange with people experience, but it's not necessarily the view of everybody. And with software, it's about, as I was saying earlier, structure. It's about structure very often, in one way or another, in whatever paradigm you want. It's about how are we going to structure this and the difference that makes. And so we kind of need to get out of this idea that there's one right answer and one wrong answer. And I think if we can break that, that may help people with the admission part, because they'll go, oh, I'm not going to walk in and be told I've done everything wrong. And I think that's a fear when you're on your own. Exactly as you say, you can see two fears. One is they just don't know there's a better way, and the other is they kind of don't want to admit that they haven't done it the best way. So I think promoting that kind of learning and promoting the kind of software that kind of improvement approach that look, it's something like any skill you have to work at, and nobody's expecting you to just do a course and be perfect. But obviously that's a hard message to get out. But I think, ultimately whatever you can do to get them speaking to other developers, because it's going to help. Because the reality is, and as I said, I say about having the one right way, the reality is, I don't think anybody really believes that anyway. Even when people are presenting a solution, when you actually talk to them about the nuances, they go, "Oh yeah, no, that doesn't work in that case. Yeah, absolutely, there needs to be another way for that case." So, trying to find ways to get them out and engage with the community. I guess the forums is a great place to start. Making sure that the various NI forums are friendly and welcoming to people. And then it's for NI and the user groups to promote that further and say, actually, look, there's more development to be done here. No one's expecting you to be perfect after core 1 and 2. But don't get me wrong, this is a huge challenge that's been worked on for many years in many different environments. And I don't know the right answer yet.
Okay. Thank you very much, James, for your insight on that one. So you discussed in the beginning that in the university you were working with text-based programming languages as well, but that was limited only in the your a computer screen. But you wanted to do more with the machines and then communicating hardwares and all these kind of things. And then NI actually is since it is based on test and measurement and then automation and controlling industry and everything. Obviously I believe you are engaged with lots of projects like this. So my question is since you have been using for a while, what do you think? What are the features of the LabVIEW you think are lacking over there, or maybe if it was there, it would have been far more better for you, or what do you think? I think NXG is also there now, NXG 3.0, I believe. Maybe in NI week there can be further announcement, maybe for a 4.0 or something. So what do you think? What do you expect that could even improve the versatility of the LabVIEW?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it is so good for this. I've often thought, if I used another language, what would it be? And it's just amazing that there's this one place where there's always drivers for stuff. The only other real place that's like that is C or C++, but then the language is so low level, it's so much less productive. I guess the big part, what makes it suitable for that I/O, really is that there's two parts. There's having just hardware drivers, maintaining a leadership position in this kind of place where actually vendors, obviously the NI hardware is always going to be well supported, but other vendors are going to go, I want to be part of LabVIEW. Recently I've been working with high-speed cameras and spectrometers, and the fact that these guys have gone, actually, we need a LabVIEW driver. Is really important. So it's not even a technical thing. It's purely a kind of ecosystem thing, I guess. And keep it. I guess the other side to NI and LabVIEW with that is some of the software features across different platforms. And the other that's the other thing that's actually really key. So I had a project where we did a really quick POC on Windows. And then they've gone, oh yeah, customer loves it, but now they want to, talk to Profibus and hook it up to their process system. I'm like, well, hang on, okay, well, you've got to go to, we've got to go to real time for this. We've got to go to high reliability. And the fact that I could pretty much just port the code, and to this date, I think there's, the same code works on Windows and on real time, and I think there's 2 conditional structures in it. And that's it. To be fair, plus some, hardware abstraction layers too. But anything that I think keeps pushing LabVIEW like that is huge. So you mentioned NXG. The thing I'm quite excited about is it looks like there's some real improvements in the FPGA environment. I've not had time to have a proper play with it yet, but it looks like there's certain bits in there. So for example, right now I've got a project where we want to compile different interface speeds for FPGAs. So I actually have 5 projects, all at different clock speeds, because the way the clocks are defined in the project at the minute means there's no way I can go, okay, I want to compile this 5 times at different clock speeds. Whereas I think, I mean, I don't know about for that specific case, but it looks like NXG in general is going to better structure how those resources are managed so that it's less tied to the project and more tied to the code. So that'll be really good. You know, most of the productivity, you know, I just think NI needs to just keep investing in interfacing. You know, to hardware and to the software backend. So, you know, when I speak to customers, they're like, can LabVIEW talk to X? And I'm like, probably. You know, I'll check, but probably it can. And if we ever lose that, that's going to become a problem.
Yeah.
And really, I think what I'm really hoping for in the future is just some then better productivity on some of the structural elements. You know, I've talked about this a lot. You know, I use a lot of object-oriented programming, not really advanced stuff, like I say, but stuff like making the hierarchy viewer work better. You know, there's a wonderful bug in that at the minute. That every now and again, if you look at libraries, the BI hierarchy window, they all just sit on top of each other. I'm really excited by the UML editor that VI Technologies are working on. I think that combined with the class stuff should be really powerful, and really I should sit down and learn the existing group development suite as well. It's one of those things, you know, the upside and the downside to being a soloist is you have no boss, but actually every client's like a boss, and so you have to be deliberate in carving out time to play with these things. But I think things that help us visualize and work with designs as well as the individual code will be will really help ultimately push the level up as well. Because you know, the code is one way to look at what you're doing. And you know, the way I look at it, when I draw out a UML diagram, you know, because I'm working on a problem, it's like, okay, this is just a different perspective where I can see different things that I can't see in the code. And I think some of the developments down that front will be really interesting.
Wow, really interesting. Yeah, James. So James, like now, like we're slowly coming towards the end of the interview. I know, like we can go on forever and forever, like you know, pull it, like roll on and everything. So like in your entire like a LabVIEW career, like starting from joining NI and then moving out as a solo developer, and not only that, like now you are a director of the community GDev as well, which is itself is like a historic step outside the, you know, like independent group to do for the community and everything. I've seen like many different you know, like companies like Delacour from US, and then like Jörg Hampel from Germany, I believe. They are all involved in this one, not only like locally, like UK based conference and everything. So like what has been like one of the most interesting from your like a personal perspective, like interesting part or like experience you had in this LabVIEW journey till now?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's how I can, it kind of ties into the theme of what we've been discussing generally, is how I can spend 6 months working on my own, working in the office, think I'm doing everything right, and then go, meet some of these guys, meet Fab, meet York, you know, discuss things at CLA, something like, oh wow, no, I still have so much to learn. And that's not and I guess what I've learned over time is that's not a negative thing. That's not a, you know, oh, how have you not learnt this already? It's just recognizing there is a journey, and there's no way to rush that. You have to take your time. You have to try things. You have to get feedback. You have to get new ideas and work on them. And I think that's the biggest thing I've taken away. I think I thought when I left NI, oh, you know, I'll spend a few months learning all the bits that I don't know, and then I'll be off. and it's not. It's a continuous journey, and I think you can never sit back and go, right, I'm done. You know, you might say, okay, I know enough here, and I want to learn something over here, but you can never say, right, I know everything I need to know. Just get on.
Yeah, really interesting, James. So apart from this, like you are also traveling next week to Austin to present at the NI week. Can you tell like our like viewers and audience that like what Week is briefly, and then like what topics you are speaking on, and then where they can find you on which day, so that like it will be easier for them to find like where James is presenting.
Yeah. So exactly that. So I'm flying out to Austin. Again, for me, it's another part of. There's a whole different group of people in America that we don't see in Europe. So it's a great week of getting their ideas, seeing because there is a difference. There are like subcultures within LabVIEW as well. I remember Nancy Henson did a study once of what people called global variables. Oh, sorry, not global variables. Well, exactly the problem, LabVIEW 2 variables or functional global variables, and it was different in the States from Europe. So, it's great to kind of cross the borders and go see that. There's what they call the CPAD track, which is more advanced presentations. I'm going to be presenting on Wednesday at, I think, 1:15 on data formats. So kind of coming back to bridging the gap, what I've been trying to do the last couple of years is do stuff that's a little bit more design focused. So I have a talk about why I cringe when everyone wants data in Excel, which is a bit tongue in cheek, but really it's about people using Excel because it's the default option because everybody has it. But I really hate trying to inspect engineering data in Excel. So really, it's about, okay, there's essentially it's this CSV and there's Excel, and then it's talking about TDMS, and we can pull TDMS into Excel. We can use DIRDEM. DIRDEM's a tool I really love. I think is undervalued. To work through this data and some of the advantages and pitfalls of both. So it's not completely you should never use Excel by any means. It's just a bit of a tongue-in-cheek title, but yeah, again, just trying to deal with some of the nuances and the decisions that are involved.
Wow, really awesome, James. Thank you very much for your time. Like before we wrap up this meeting or the interview, what would you like to tell the fellow audience, people from ENI, as well as the LabVIEW champions and the fellow members of your like GDevCon, as well as the people who are expecting to hear you and meet you at the ENI week?
I think just keep being friendly, keep talking to each other, and let's try and pull the whole community up, because I think all of us will benefit from a stronger LabVIEW community, whether you're just one guy in a company as an end user, whether you're a consultant, whether you're a system integrator. I think the more we can develop this community, the greater we'll be and the greater opportunities we'll all have.
Yeah, James, thank you very much for your end note. Like this has been like a very interesting conversation. Thank you very much for your time, first of all. And yeah, thank you very much, James. And thank you very much for everyone who have been tuning in to this like interviews from all the LabVIEW experts, LabVIEW personalities, and LabVIEW champions from all over the world. Next time, we'll be speaking with yet another LabVIEW personality, and keep growing, as James has pointed out, and keep contributing to the community as well. So thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.